Does feeling full from food feel hard for you? If so, you're gonna wanna take a listen to this video because we're gonna dive into why that's happening for you and steps you can take in order to have a different kind of relationship with fullness and to make it feel that much easier. And look, I already know what you're thinking. You've done this before, you're broken, there's no way you can change your relationship with fullness in order to make it more comfortable for you. So if that's the case for you, definitely stick around because we're gonna address all of that today. You definitely want to take a listen to this. Hey there, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Catherine. I'm a registered dietitian and certified intuitive eating practitioner, helping you to create a different kind of relationship with food and your body. If you're new here, like this video, comment below, and definitely subscribe to my channel so you can get more access to all the videos I put out. Can you relate to the experience of feeling full from food and feeling like you've done something wrong, you can't get it right, it feels really uncomfortable, and it just feels really confusing? This is a super common experience for many people, and this is why I really want to address this with you, because feeling full from food is a normal, natural part of eating, and yet when we've engaged in diets or disordered eating for some time, fullness can get really confusing. What is fullness? Should I be feeling it? Should I be feeling it less? Should I be feeling it more? Is it okay to feel uncomfortable when I'm feeling full? And so we're gonna definitely dive into this and get a sense for why fullness feels so uncomfortable for you, and also steps that you can take in order to challenge some of the discomfort that you're feeling when you feel full. You may be in a place right now where you're wanting to create a different kind of relationship with food or practice becoming more of an intuitive eater. And sometimes we are confronted along that process with our relationship with both hunger and fullness. And so I really want to talk about fullness today, because this is a really common roadblock on the way to creating a different kind of relationship with food. So why does fullness feel so hard and why does it feel so confusing? So if you think about it for a moment, you have most likely experienced or participated in many different kinds of diets throughout your life, and maybe you're even engaging with one right now. And when we follow diets, these are external sources of people telling us how much we're supposed to eat, what we're not supposed to eat, etc. This really disconnects us from our own body's experience and really gets in the way of us meeting our body's energy needs, which we get from food. So for example, think about the different kinds of diets: macro counting, calorie counting, portion control, etc. All of these diets are telling you how much you're supposed to eat, and then you're supposed to be done. So you can't actually continue eating so that you can feel a sense of fullness, for example. And so over time, it's a really common experience to be on one end or the other of the spectrum. And the spectrum that I'm talking about is the spectrum of fullness and of hunger. So on one side, we think about being really, really hungry. On the other side, we think about being quite full. And when we've dieted for some time, we end up either on one side of that spectrum or the other. And then this just perpetuates the myth that you cannot be trusted around food, that you have no idea how to navigate fullness, and you have no idea how to navigate food, and so that you need to restrict even more. And this is not the case. I really want to debunk that notion that you cannot be trusted around food. And so let's talk a little bit more about why fullness feels hard for you and some things you can do to resolve it. Fullness is a normal, natural part of eating, and it's something that we are wanting to aim for when we're having food. In fact, there are all kinds of mechanisms that are in place that involve hormones that signal to your body that it has had enough food. But why is it so hard? Why do we resist that? Why do we feel so uncomfortable with fullness? Well, one of the first reasons is that you exist in a culture that really demonizes the experience of fullness. You can see this in different kinds of diets that you follow. You can see this in rhetoric and culture and media around the notion of being full. And so a really great first step is beginning to challenge the notion that there is something wrong with fullness or that you've done something wrong, because you most certainly haven't. Right? We want to be experiencing fullness, and we ebb and flow between experiencing hunger and experiencing fullness. Now, the thing that's often really challenging about this is that we often experience either being really, really hungry or really, really full. And so when we're dieting, when we're restricting our food intake, and then we're finally exposed to foods, it's really common to eat beyond our fullness, what some call overeating, or maybe even binge. And then we experience really uncomfortable fullness. And then again, we use that as proof that we cannot be trusted around food and that we don't know how to navigate fullness. When in fact, taking steps towards moving away from dieting and shifting your mindset from a dieting mindset to a more intuitive eating mindset can help you uncover and discover the nuances of fullness, because we don't exist on one side of the spectrum or the other unless we're feeling particularly disconnected from food. And so I would encourage you to really get curious about your experience with fullness, while also taking a look at the ways that you might be restricting your food intake. Maybe you're following a diet, or maybe you might not even call it a diet, or you're still holding on to food rules. All of the steps that we can take towards being more comfortable with fullness involve really challenging the dieting mindset, because so much of that, they're definitely interconnected in that way. The second reason why fullness often feels challenging and it can bring up all kinds of discomfort for us is that the experience of feeling full often can involve maybe some bloating, some distension of your belly, and this really brings up some feelings of internalized anti-fatness. This is a really common experience in our culture, considering the culture that we exist in, and we equate being full from food with the experience of our body changing, our body shifting. Maybe you have some fears about weight gain, and so this is a beautiful opportunity to really unpack and get curious about your internalized anti-fatness. And by internalized, I just mean that when we're told something over and over again, it becomes almost like the voice of our own, right? If we ask ourselves the question, like, whose voice is that? You might say, well, it's my voice. It's something that I believe. When in fact, it's a whole chorus often of different voices, culture, people, parents, diets, that have told us, medical practitioners that have told us that your body is not okay as it is, and in fact it's not okay for your body to change, and equates body size to health and so many other things. So part of the way that we really challenge our beliefs about bodies, our beliefs about fullness, is taking a look internally and getting curious about what comes up for you when you feel full. What are the fears that you have about your body changing? And how can we really challenge those and unpack them? Another reason why fullness can often feel hard is that it's not prescriptive in nature. Oftentimes when you look at this culture, or maybe different things that you have followed in the past, you will be advised or given very specific steps as to how to eat a certain way or how to not eat a certain way. And it feels very clear, right? You follow it step by step. But when we're reconnecting to things like fullness, it changes every day and oftentimes throughout the day. It's unpredictable. Sometimes we might need more food, sometimes we might need less food, and that can lead us to feeling a greater sense of fullness. And so it requires that we take the steps to connect to our body, to understand the experience of fullness, which is actually really hard. It's a skill set that we build, not only in challenging, as I mentioned, some of the internalized beliefs that we've had and taking steps towards moving away from a dieting mindset or even engaging in restrictive eating behaviors, but it's also a process of reconnection to the body and getting comfortable with not getting it right. Right? Sometimes you might be overly full, sometimes you might be full in just the way that it feels comfortable, sometimes you might experience bodily sensations that don't feel particularly comfortable. And this can lead to a feeling like, again, I'm doing it wrong, there's something wrong with me, I'm broken, when in fact, this is also a normal, natural part of eating and feeling full, that sometimes we're going to get it to a place where we feel comfortably full, and sometimes we might feel uncomfortably full, and that's all okay. So it really provides the opportunity for you to get curious about perfectionism that might be showing up for you, the ways in which you hold yourself to high standards, because fullness will ebb and flow depending on what we're eating, depending on how long it's been since we've eaten, and lots of other reasons why fullness can change throughout the day and in different eating experiences that we have. If fullness feels hard for you, please know that you're not alone. When you are seeking and wanting to create a different kind of relationship with food, fullness is often really hard to tackle. It sounds super simple on paper, right? You honor your hunger, you respect your fullness, and there you go, you're done. But that's not how it works. And so one of the ways that you can get curious about your fullness, because we really want to reconnect to the nuances of fullness, which is something that is taken away from us by diet culture and by dieting. And the way that we do this is by separating fullness into pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral fullness. Now you can keep a note section on your phone or write it down somewhere, like a journal or on a piece of paper, and write down the physical sensations and experiences that you have that you might put into the category of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral fullness. By practicing this and doing this over time, you'll start to get a sense for what feels good, what doesn't feel so good, and you'll start to get comfortable with the experience of fullness, right? Alongside of that, we want to be practicing reminding ourselves that there's nothing wrong with fullness, you're not doing anything wrong, and in fact, this is a normal, natural part of eating and a normal, natural part of digestion. And so really developing the skills around getting to know the nuances of fullness, because you most likely have been disconnected from them for so much time. Please remember that this is not a linear process. Sometimes you'll think, oh, I'm not quite sure if this feels pleasant or unpleasant, right? This is a process of experimentation, and we really want to get curious. We want to try things. And we want to be compassionate towards ourselves, considering the amount of time that you've been probably following external rules and guidelines about what you should be eating, which really disconnects you from your fullness over time. So let us continue to get curious about fullness and really challenge a lot of the rules and myths and messages that are out there about how fullness needs to be felt in a particular way, or that you're doing something wrong if you feel full. Alongside of that, we really want to be taking steps towards challenging that dieting mindset, which is part of what disconnects us and has disconnected us from feeling our fullness for so long. So if this is something that you've experienced, if you find fullness challenging, I'd love for you to comment below or let us know, has your relationship with fullness changed over time?